Greetings, fellow moviegoers, and welcome to Movie Central, the place to talk about movies, TV shows based on movies, toys based on movies, games based on movies, and rides based on movies. I'm your host, Mr. CCS, and these are my pets, George the Gorilla, Carl the Dolphin, and Frank the Sea Turtle. What? It's the location, isn't it? Those damn fools with the TVA and the TRO are after me right about now. After the Flash's little fiasco, I have to hide in an undisclosed location until it's safe to go back to my usual hiding place. It also doesn't help that an undisclosed variant of Albus McGrime is on the loose somewhere in my universe. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out the description. Anyways, while I'm here, I might as well talk about the long-awaited sequel to Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy.
Despite the fact that it wasn't exactly the biggest hit, Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy was still a great movie that fans of the franchise unanimously agreed was pretty awesome. So that instantly meant that there was want for a sequel. Now, ideas were to reinvent some classic monsters like Dracula or Frankenstein's monster, which, considering Guillermo's MO, would have been incredible. I do have to say that the other idea of Hellboy battling titans of elements of Earth was pretty cool, but by the time Pan's Labyrinth was in development, these titans were switched out with original villains called the Golden Army, which would be led by this vampiric elf prince named Nuada. Eventually, filming began in 2007, and the movie was distributed by Universal Studios in the summer of 2008. Not only did it receive critical praise, but it also made a decent amount of money at the box office. Unfortunately, a third installment was never made, despite fans clamoring for it. Regardless, is this film good?
Let's find out today. This is Hellboy 2, The Golden Army.
Hellboy, played again by Ron Perlman, his pyrokinetic girlfriend Liz, played again by Selma Blair, and aquatic empath Abe Sapien, played again by Doug Jones, face their biggest battle when an underworld prince, played by Luke Goss, plans to reclaim Earth for his magical kindred. Tired of living in the shadow of humans, Prince Nuada tries to awaken an ancient army of killing machines to clear the way for fantasy creatures to roam free. Only Hellboy can stop the Dark Prince and prevent humanity's annihilation.
In all honesty, as much as I enjoyed the first film, I have to say that this one was so much better. The story is more interesting, the action is improved, the visuals are better, and it's bigger and ballsier. This is now an example of a sequel doing so much more, quickly becoming one of the best films in this franchise to me, right below Blood and Iron. So, let's talk about what makes this movie work, and why I enjoyed it so much.
So, in regards to characters, I'm happy to report that the main trio of the BPRD are massive improvements over their first movie counterparts. You already know that my two favorites are Hellboy and Abe Sapien. Once again, I must give massive props to both Ron Perlman and Doug Jones, both of whom are great at what they are doing. I love the bromance that they have this time around, especially in that scene where they are singing that love song. Who said there couldn't be funny jokes in comic book movies, am I right? As far as Liz goes, she's more in tune with who she is in the animated films as well as the comics. I found her far more interesting here than I did in the first movie. Also, she's carrying two human-demon hybrids in her stomach, which is ridiculous and also hilarious at the same time. Finally, for our returning characters, we have Manning, whom I didn't expect to see again. But I'm not complaining because, again, I like Jeffrey Tambor. He's still that very shrill authority figure that everyone loves to hate, and I'd argue he's funnier here than he is in the first movie. Good choice on bringing him back here, though. I appreciated it a lot. Now, let's move on to the new characters. Dr. Johann Kraus was a character I didn't expect to enjoy as much as I did. First things first, they took a very obscure design from the comics and brought it into live action in the best way possible. There is no way a character like this could come to life in this fashion without this much care, but sure enough, that's what happened. He was annoying and got on the character's nerves, which I enjoyed seeing a ton. It's also hilarious seeing his ghost waltz around like there's no tomorrow in a locker room scene. God, these movies are hilarious. There's also Princess Nuala, who's the sister to the main antagonist, and she serves her part well. Not only does she give Abe a feeling of companionship, which was a very sweet moment, but she also was the one who ended the movie in a very satisfying manner, which is something I must applaud. Now, let's talk about these villains. Starting off with the small, we have Mr. Wink, who I think works as a brainless muscle henchman very well. He reminded me a little too much of Cole Obsidian from Avengers Infinity War, but that's neither here nor there. I think he's a neat little villain that serves the plot pretty well. If only he was on screen for just a bit longer. Now, for our main villain, we have Prince Nuada. Now, he's not the best villain in movie history, but he has some pretty frightening and standout moments. For example, not only is he able to take on rooms full of guards, but he also kills his father without remorse. This is also a guy who believes his destiny is defined by conquering and having power. Kind of reminds you of a certain snow leopard from a movie that came out the same summer. At the end of the day, Nuada is a ruthless and well-written character that is great for this type of movie. He's not an all-time GOAT villain, but he is memorable and he does do something at the very least. Alright, I have nothing more to say on these characters. Let's talk about the effects. In 2008, the 3 other comic book movies released were Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, and The Dark Knight. All of them had great effects. The Dark Knight in particular was all practical. This film not only looks better than the first movie, but I'd say it's on par with Iron Man for best VFX in 2008. I think the makeup is still incredible, and I'd say it's on par with the first movie's effects, especially with Red and Blue, the nicknames of my 2 favorite boys. Even the Angel of Death, despite the thing is only on the screen for less than a minute or so. Characters like Wink, as well as that Prime Minister character in the Hall of the King, and many other creatures were brought to life with fantastic costume work and other great practical effects. Seriously, why don't big budget movies use less CGI and more practical effects? They look so much better. As far as the CGI in this movie goes, I think it looks great. That Earth Titan is incredible, and it looks like it's actually real. The Earth Titan is one of the highlights of the effects for me, as you can probably tell. The robots of the Golden Army look pretty fantastic too, as do Liz's fire effects. The point I'm trying to make here is that the movie looks a lot better than its predecessor, and that is something I don't say lightly. As far as the score is concerned, it was composed this time around by Danny Elfman, who not only was a worthy replacement, but he did a great job of making a majestic sounding score for a movie like this. I don't think it's among his best work, but I certainly do think it was a good score and helped make the movie stand out amongst its predecessor. Finally, we have the action and the tone. This movie isn't frightening per se, but it is a ton of fun and very intense. I think my favorite action scenes were the climax and the Tooth Fairy scene, with the Titan battle being my overall favorites. They were all extremely fun to watch. So overall, Hellboy 2: The Golden Army is not only an improvement to its predecessor, but it's also a great and underrated comic book movie at the same time. I recommend it to anyone who loved the first movie and is trying to become a Hellboy fan like myself, which is why it gets a score of a 10 out of 10.
Well, that's it for this review. For the meantime, we're stuck in this ugly orange room, but it's better than nothing. Until I return to my normal domain, this is what we're working with. Tune in next week for another review if you so please. So with that said, my name is Mr. CCS, these are my pets, this is Movie Central, and that, my friends, is a wrap. See you next week.